following podcast may contain some adult language. You've been warned.
Those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all nerds! International. With the hyphen.
Welcome to Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast. This is a show dedicated to the Genesys role-playing system from Fantasy Flight Games, a show in which we, your hosts, discuss all things Genesys from both the player's and a GM's perspective. I am Tony Fanning, and with me as always are my co-hosts of extraordinary character, Mr. Chris Holmes and Stephan Dragonspawn. How are we doing, fellas? Starting with Chris.
Extraordinary character, huh? Appreciate that.
Well, I had to say something nice about you after I tripped over the freaking intro.
It's a role-playing game. Yeah, it is. Speaking of role-playing games, captured my dudes Saturday night playing D&D. Sorry, D-Shift 7D. That was fun. Yep. Have not run I'm going to throw a shit ton of enemies against you and capture you successfully without killing you with the party wipe in a long time. So, yeah, they handled it pretty good. They were a little bit like, we need to run. The first sign of like, you guys need to, you need to surrender now. And then the one guy just bolted. And I'm like, yes! Two of them went down and the other one bolted. So, yay, way to go, guys. That was fun. That's all I got. Still relishing on that. How are you, Stephan? What's up?
Yep. I'm doing pretty good. No gaming recently. I'm looking forward to the Star Wars game on Wednesday. Tony's game, so hopefully that'll be nice. I've had to miss last game. Other than that, just taking care of my hubby. He's been under the weather this weekend, but getting better. Climbing up that hill. So, and other than that, nope. We're all good.
All good. And you, Tony, working your ass off, aren't you?
Slaving to the man. That's right. Yeah. Putting in 24 hours overtime in one weekend.
Oh, by the way, did you put that meat in the mail and send to me so I could smoke that fucking deer you hit the other day?
Yeah, and that was the other thing is
that sucks, dude.
My car was in the shop, so I decided, I told my wife I'm going to drive yours tomorrow, and I hit a deer in her Jeep. Of all things.
Damn, I'm glad you're all right because, man, hitting freaking deers dude, that'll fuck your car up big time.
Yeah. It taught me a valuable lesson. She loves that Jeep more than she loves me sometimes.
Oh, and there it is on the internet forever now.
It's all right. She doesn't listen to this.
Well, that's good. So I guess on that note, Stephan, what kind of news do we have, if any?
Yes, we do. I managed to find a little bit of news today. Someone on Reddit had just posted this under the radar kind of thing. That I should have been more diligent too. The Genesys website, they've been talking about just before Gen Con about the new expanded player's guide was supposed to come out. And on their website mentioning that, I guess, not a lot of people saw it, but if you pre-order your extended PH guide from the Fantasy Flight Game website, you also receive 10 different magic spell cards. So you have all the handy reference cards with what each spell does and all the difficulty dice added for different effects you want to add to your spell, whether it's attack or anything like that. And 10 magic spell cards. But wait, Stephan, isn't there just 7 in the core book? Yes, but the expanded player's guide adds 3 more actions.
Cool.
One is called Mask, one is Transform, and one is Predict. So from the names, of course, you can probably guess at what kind of things that these actions will do. So
cool.
precognition and shape change and do illusions and so forth.
Yes.
So we'll put a link in the show notes. So if you order, you'll get those cards in addition to the book.
Yeah. Oh, look, I've got it right here. It's right above the picture of the spell cards. Furthermore, if you pre-order the Expanded Player's Guide,
there you go.
You'll get the 10. Yeah, it's there.
It's
gotta read all the words.
When I saw, when I saw that, it's like, yep, I'm placing my pre-order now. So
cool.
It'll be good. Little reference for my face-to-face game, which I'm putting together pretty soon. This upcoming Saturday, actually, we are having our session 0. So,
good luck.
and I'll be running converting an old Fantasy Flight game setting called Dragonstar, which of course was for another popular D20 system, and of course adapting it to Genesis. So using a lot of stuff from Terranoth book, Android, and the Star Arcana, which was on the GM Foundry as sources that I'm picking and choosing.
Cool, dude.
But hey, this is a good time for us to talk about today's show topic, which we are going to be doing a setting spotlight on Twilight Imperium and space opera. So cool.
Here we go.
Yeah, dude.
All right. Well, hey, we got a little bit of feedback.
Oh, yes, we do.
I've chosen this from David A. Klempa, entitled To Tony, Chris, and Stephan. Hey guys, I've finally, after months and trips to the gym and walks of the dog, which is when I normally listen to such things, I finally completed all the episodes of your series. Great work.
I hope walks of the dog isn't like code for anything. Right?
No.
Sorry.
I actually think he's physically walking his dog. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I was very interested in your episode on mass combat, Rally the Troops. You referenced a system from one of the Star Wars supplements, but unfortunately I don't own any of the Star Wars material, and Follow the Leader is not available on drive-thru. Any suggestions? And then in the extra spicy episode, you discussed pulp tropes and mentioned chases being an integral part of the setting. I agree, but notice that chases are not covered in the Genesys rules. So, how do you handle them? Competitive skill checks? Some kind of skill challenge? I've toyed with a variation of the system from the old James Bond 007 game, RPG, but that might overly complicate things. Since I'm running a fantasy campaign and have been Terranoth and have been considering adding a new effect. These are all multiple questions here. To the augment, barrier, conjure, and curse actions, basically those that have a concentration option, in that you can use the extend effect by adding 2 purple difficulty dice. The spell lasts for a number of turns equal to your ranks in knowledge lore. A triumph may be spent to have the spell last for the encounter. If nothing else, this addition would give the dispel action increased importance. And I don't want to make magic itself overpowered. What do you think? And on a side note, with the emphasis on steampunk you guys have shown lately, I was wondering if you've read The Aeronaut's Windlass by Jim Butcher. It seems as it has everything that you would enjoy in this setting: airships, weird science / magic, haves and have-nots, half catfolk warrior class, mysterious alien menace, talking cats. Dude, I'm in love already. And a great first entry in a new series. Heartily recommend. That's all for now. Thanks for your help and keep up with the good work. So, out of all those questions, guys,
what do we tackle first?
Yeah, what would you like to tackle?
Well, let's go back. Let's go from the top. I think.
So he doesn't own any of this Star Wars material. Any suggestions? Well, you go pick up the book, listen to our episode. We pretty much went through as much as we could with it.
There's other options out there, but I can't recommend them on air. The thing is that Fantasy Flight, while they do have the license from Lucasfilm, EA had the electronic license, so therefore they cannot produce PDFs of any of the Star Wars books.
Right.
Which is why those are not available on drive-through.
Mm-hmm.
It's something to do with digital goods and
right.
all the
Copyrights,
legalese
all the legal
and
stuff.
whatnot.
Yeah.
So really, there is no other place to find it unless someone is kind enough to photocopy it and share it with you. There's nothing against the law as a friend photocopying it and sharing it.
Mm-hmm. But as far as the way that, I mean, competitive skill checks is a great way of doing it. And then you could come up with things like throwing obstacles out there to to add setback, boost dice, those kinds of things. Just kind of come up with your own things there. And then I think we had went over the chase rules in one of our episodes too. But
there isn't really any
challenges
chase rules, and we didn't do them, but I did a chase using the chase rules from Star Wars.
Yeah.
On my Android, the game that I ran for you guys over on the brewery.
Yeah, that's a good one to listen to. Listen to that chase. That was fun.
And I even kind of went into explaining it after the fact a little bit for Jamie because he was curious.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, Stephan?
For mass combat, if you want to keep it simple, focus maybe if some characters have leadership, make them roll that leadership to affect the battlefield in some way. If they're having some ideas to move people around, or at least to reflect, even if the player doesn't have military knowledge, but his character does. So use those advantages and triumphs and maybe setbacks and of course and despairs to affect the battle their allies stuff.
Oh, I guess I went off topic there, didn't I? I went down to the chases. Oops, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Then, back to mass combat. Yeah.
And then chases, they're not covered. Maybe in the expanded players guide, maybe not. But yeah, I think a skill challenge would be pretty cool. Maybe even a pose skill challenge kind of thing. If I don't know, you have to think about it. Maybe if it has to be opposed, I guess you could do an opposed with your adversaries. So like a regular difficulty, they impose purple and red dice to whatever action that the people are actually chasing in the chasees.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really depends on your flavor that you're looking for with both the mass combat and with the chase rules. With the mass combat, you can do, I've done mass combat in many settings, even in settings that didn't have mass combat rules. I know I did it back in D-Shift 7D 3.5 before they came out with the Heroes of Battle book and gave you rules for it. I did a couple of mass battles, but I knew I knew the direction I wanted the main battle to go in, and I just let the players' actions and outcomes from their roles affect the area of the battlefield around them, but not the larger narrative. And that was one way that I did it. There's other ways where I let players control actual huge segments of the battlefield by giving them quick, easy stats. They'd have a 1, 2, 3, or 4 rating in something, and basically that would give your percentile dice of success 25, 50, or 75 or 100% to succeed on something, or and I just kind of quick hard coded it out, rolled it with percentile dice, and moved on. That's an easy way to do it. Chase rules, I think they should have put them in. I hope they come out in the advanced players guide. Their chase rules are simple and easy and sleek, and you treat the range bands as if they're almost like a small board game in front of you. It's a linear one, but your players start at this range increment, your enemy or adversaries start at this range increment, and whom's chasing who, you move them in the same direction, and they just get closer or get further away. And once they're beyond the second rank of extreme range, they've gotten away, or whomever's trying to flee has gotten away. So once they get to engaged range, that's when you start a combat or a social encounter.
Yep.
So
And if you want to go a little more action packed and pulpy, hey, if you're in engage range, then you can do stuff like boarding the other hover car or ship, or however you want to do it. Yeah, jump across or something.
Jump to the chariot or whatever vehicle.
Yep, that too. Yeah, all that.
Yeah, and just one little idea I had real quick, for even going back to mass combat, treat some large amounts of troops as minion groups. Of course, you're not going to, if there's 50 soldiers, you're not going to have 50 dice, but let's say, depending on the quality of troops, they could still have 1, 2, 3, 4 dice, and pitting against other minion groups of similar size, and you still make them roll, and you don't even have to increase the hit points. Like, okay, this is hit points for...
or wounds, you mean, right?
An entire squad.
You mean wounds, right?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Wounds. Yeah, wounds for one squad of 50 is 10 or 12 or something.
Exactly, or 20 if they're if they're really good with heavy armor.
Right.
Or you could just use the whole minions kind of rule where you hit them, they're gone. Right? Like one success takes out a minion group, and another success takes maybe out another one or something. However you want to do it.
Yeah.
Now on to his little extend rule spell feature, which I thought I liked it.
Kind of cool.
I thought, you could just apply this as a tier 1 talent that lets you apply it to a tier 1 ranked talent and lets you apply it to a new spell type for each rank that you take in it. If you're having, because he did say he didn't want to make magic overpowered. So I thought if you're having balance issues, you could make this a tier 1 talent, ranked, and then they could apply it to any of those listed. And each time they took a rank, it would apply to a different one, which the ones he had listed were Augment, Barrier, Conjure, and Curse. And you could even have Attack to have the representation of a area of effect spell that
lingering effect.
Like, for instance, an attack with the lightning, you just summoned a storm that's now in the area, and lightning is striking in that area
there you go.
for several rounds of combat.
Yeah, and you can also limit it. You can also limit it to the rank, your ranks in knowledge lore, right? Or whatever your linked knowledge is. Like if you have 2 ranks in knowledge lore, then you can throw extend on 2 actions like augment and barrier or something. You can kind of limit it that way if you're afraid it's going to become a little overpowered as well, right?
Exactly. Maybe cost an extra strain or 2.
But it costing 2 difficulty. That's a hefty price too, because it limits to what you could put on the spell itself, right?
Well, exactly. I think as a talent might be a good way to go, at least to try out first.
Yeah.
Try it out. Tier 1 ranked talent. Up to your knowledge and ranks in knowledge lore or whatever knowledge, forbidden if it's Terranoth and you use that as your main yardstick. And if you want, start out with costing an extra strain per spell. And if it's costs too much, well, then you can always retcon. It's like, okay, never mind the strain. It's still limited. But
I mean, because basically, what are we saying here? We're saying that you're putting the extend effect on a spell instead of spending a maneuver to concentrate, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's action economy at that point, in a way. So however you want to do it.
Yeah. Now he did give us a bit of a follow up to that email particularly about extend. That's why I wanted to go into it now.
Sure, yeah.
And he says, other thoughts on extend. I haven't considered the talent approach. Thanks for that. It led me to further define it. Let me know if I'm overthinking this. I thought I'd change the cost to 1 difficulty and 1 automatic upgrade to the difficulty, because you're pushing the normal parameter of spellcasting, so it's subsequently more dangerous. Then I'd have a tier 2 ranked talent called Fire and Forget. Select 1 spell type, Augment, Barrier, Conjure, or Curse, and your character may add the extend effect without increasing its difficulty. There is still an auto upgrade to the difficulty. Each additional time you purchase this talent, you may select an additional spell type.
Ooh, I actually like that. I like the danger Will Robinson part of it, because if you roll some bad stuff,
despair on a magic check is nothing to cry about.
Yeah, I mean you can lose your connection to like magic for the encounter at that point if the DM is such a jerk.
You mean
GM? Well, whatever. True. Both.
Gotcha.
You did get me. It's all right. I've been dungeon mastering lately. I'm proud of it.
And yes, I have.
Yeah, I like that better actually.
And I have checked out the Aeronauts Windlass. I have ordered it on my Amazon. Thank you for letting me know about that, because I do enjoy Jim Butcher. He's a good author, and I like some steampunk. So
go ahead.
I actually read Aeronauts Windlass a while back when it came out, and because I really love Jim Butcher and his whole Dresden series.
Oh, cool.
And I do like this one too. I mean, yeah, it's a little slow to begin with. It's a pretty hefty book, but it drags you in. There's little things that you can almost imagine this being, a gaming group, and this is the first few sessions. You're bringing the characters together. So this person comes from this high society, this one's low society, this one medium, and the talking cats. Those are awesome. They're forming clans, but not everyone can understand them, which is cool. But
okay.
Everyone knows they're smart.
That's amazing. Love it.
And yeah, those cat wars are like almost like genetically altered people, so almost like a warrior caste within these family clans. So when they do fight against each other, it's like, wow. Like remember what the superhero TV series there, Mutant Chronicles, Mutant X on TV. It wasn't X-Men, but it was almost a copy, and one type of mutant were called ferals, basically.
Oh, okay.
So they didn't actually have adamantium claws, but still, when they fight, their senses are all heightened, and almost like bullet time for them. Everything else slows down.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah,
well,
cool setting. I'm hoping that book 2 comes out eventually. I know there was quite a few years between the two books. Oh well.
Well, thank you, Dave, for writing us.
I appreciate it.
And keep listening. We'll continue to keep pounding out product, or whatever you want to call this thing that we do.
Suggestions, a waste of time for all of you listening while you walk your dogs.
These ramblings of 3 old men.
Yeah, thank you for listening, everybody. Putting up with us.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next thing.
All right.
Welcome to 50 Pieces of Awesome. This is where Chris Holmes goes out on the internet and scours it for the greatest and latest. Chris, what have you got for us this week?
All right. Hey, Tony.
That's my best movie trailer voice.
That was great.
Movie phone.
What we have is, what we have is Inquisition. Again, everybody, but this is the Dark Fantasy Campaign, version 3.1, off of the Genesys Foundry. William Tardif, a.k.a. Corlal.
Guillaume.
I know, I'm horrible. I'm horrible with names. But we're talking 118 pages of awesomeness. He added about 30 pages to this. Extended, I must say, this is feels like a better, more complete product now. And I'm impressed. I want to frickin' play in this. Tony, you need to run it. Or I'll run it.
Why is it always me?
Because you're so good at running things. No, so what he's done is he's added more to the Gazetteer, so kind of fleshed out the world a bit. One of the things that he did is he pulled in the vampire and werewolf talents from Drainsmith, got permission from him, added those in, Plus, he added witches and grave walkers, which that's kind of cool.
In.
Yeah, and he kind of separated those into different areas in the talent section. And what's really cool is so how you become a grave walker, and everybody can figure out what that means. Is hang on a minute, let me go into the place. Where was it? Where are the character? Oh, yeah, character creation is like way down. So the talent is called... So in order to become a grave walker, which is basically an undead, you first have to take Fear the Reaper. It's a talent that makes you more vulnerable to dying, because it's ultimately about, dying at some point. The crit rating of any attack is reduced by 1. It gains a vicious 2 quality. But then once you die, then this Fear the Reaper talent converts into the Grave Walker. So now you're undead. You have this silver anathema, which you're vulnerable to weapons that have silver on it, like other things. You have... I don't know. I just think that's a kick-ass concept to just say, yep, this is the direction I want to take my character. You're going to kill me, and I'll come back as a Grave Walker.
Nice.
So, yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Cool.
A couple of other talents I have not seen a precedent for this yet. There's something called Archers. So these are both Tier 2 talents. Archer's Focus and Two-Handed Grip. Similar. So one is, when you're making a ranged weapon, if they didn't use a maneuver to ready or stow a weapon, they add an advantage to the result. Nice. Which is kind of cool. And then a Two-Handed Grip is if you're making a combat check with a melee light weapon that has an encumbrance value of at least 2, then you can add an advantage to the result if you're not using it, if you don't have anything in your second hand. So you're kind of using a two-handed grip. I hadn't seen that anywhere. How about you guys? That's kind of neat.
That's nice.
Those are neat.
I thought I saw a talent that allowed people to use a two-handed weapon one-handed.
Yep. Yeah, this is just taking like that small... It kind of reminds me of like the Dwarven War Axe, right? Where you can use it with one hand, it doesn't do quite as much damage, but then if you use it two-handed, then it gets a little more. And this just adds an advantage, a little more chance for you to... Yeah, absolutely. And then he's expanded the GM section as well. There's the character sheet is pretty sweet looking. It's got like those neat little graphics in the characteristics windows, and the font is just, it's a nice font, and it too just kind of evokes that medieval dark fantasy setting for me. Plus, he's got an adventure called Dying Light out there available. I snarfed up both of those things, and yeah, this looks cool. This is very cool. Very well done. Very well done.
Well, I had not yet purchased it, but now I'm convinced. Chris loves it. He wants me to run it. So, Guillaume, I guess I'll be purchasing it this Thursday when I get paid.
Yeah, does your arm hurt?
No, I do look forward to reading it. It was already in my cart. I just hadn't purchased it yet because I do have to budget my RPG spending with a new wife who is not in the hobby.
I hear you. It is easier when your wife's a dork and will play with you.
Yeah,
with
it does.
Yeah. And a little bit of an overhaul. I don't know if it's an overhaul to his witchcraft, but there is magic in this setting with witchcraft, and we might get a taste of it in a little while. Maybe a little foreshadowing. Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Are there adversaries in it?
Oh yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Any good ones?
I am going to look. Actually, there was... Oh, what the heck was it? It was the... Oh, shoot.
Bang.
I know. Inquisitor is pretty sweet. These are nasty. Oh, the Knights... Oh, there's some Knights Templar as well, which looks pretty nasty. There's the Pope.
Oh.
You can fight the Pope. That's cool. Nice. Some priests, there's a nice set of adversaries. Then there's some corrupted adversaries as well. So
like you do.
Mm-hmm, like grave walkers. There's a flare. What's this flare? An abomination result of somebody being exposed to Lilithia's essence. So, yeah.
Well,
it's pretty nasty.
Hey, I just want to add this because I was looking at it on DriveThruRPG. It looks like he has received best seller copper status.
Yeah. Yes, he has. Congratulations there, bud.
There you go. So maybe after this episode, a few listeners will listen and they'll bump it up to silver.
There we go.
So there you go. So congratulations, Guillaume Tardif. So you've got 50 pieces of copper awesome for now, and maybe it'll be upgraded to 50 pieces of silver awesome.
Sweet.
All right. Well, Guillaume, enjoy those on top of the other 50 that we gave you last time.
There we go.
Don't know what kind
everyone
of
else
you're getting.
Go out and enjoy this setting. It looks good. I'll give you. It really looks good.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, when you want to recreate kind of a Witcher's game kind of setting, there we go.
Mm-hmm. All right, welcome back. We are on the next section of our show called The Books of Genesis. Oh my gosh. All right, we're back down to under 10 listeners after that one, I think.
Yeah.
Just put it in auto tune. You'll be perfect.
Yeah, that's
sweet. I'm on a boat. No. So open up your book to the core rulebook to page 179, page 180 if you're into PDF like myself, to the space opera section. So we're going to be talking space opera. We're going to go over some tropes, species, gear, adversaries, and then we'll talk about their specific setting example later. But for right now, gentlemen, space opera versus sci-fi. It's a type of sci-fi, but we do have a couple types of sci-fi.
Yes.
What do we think of the differences between these two?
Well, the main difference in space opera that the adventure's not over until the fat alien has sung.
Sweet. So we're talking the fifth element. Could be.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly it. You're looking at the high adventure is more important than scientific accuracy.
Correct.
Yeah, it's not Star Trek with all the technobabble of bypassing the matter reactor and whatever this and that.
Mm-hmm. It kind of is, though. I would think Star Trek is kind of a space opera because you really don't care. They throw in the technobabble because, it works. Yeah. Teleporters. We're going to reconfigure
there's a heavy focus on the technology. Oh, yeah. You could say a bit more space opera, something more like Event
Star
Horizon
Wars.
Or would be more Star Wars, gritty Star Wars. Space, I mean. Whereas, Star Wars is definitely space opera.
Yep.
Yeah, yep. And that's just... those really are both space opera. The big difference is that one focuses more on its tech, one focuses more on its mystic sides of things. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, though, there is no real science behind what's in the things that are going on. It's all made up stuff that while the technobabble does in a Star Trek setting does sound like they know what they're talking about, they're really just talking out their ass.
Right.
Because we haven't discovered anything of what they're talking about.
Yeah, so it's heavy on. So it says here, heavy on the adventure, light on the actual science, and that's exactly what it is.
Well, that's it. The science is just part of the. It's all part of the decor, like you look in Star Wars, very small ships that can span galaxies or star systems.
Mm-hmm.
They always have enough oxygen in the tiny little ship.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker goes from Hoth to Dagobah in an X-wing, and he has enough air and enough food, apparently. Even though he spends, I don't know, hours, maybe days in there.
Of course he does. That's what R2's doing. He's recycling the air, right?
Well,
I
of course.
guess. I have no idea.
But yeah, there's technology aboard the ship that makes it possible. So even on a small ship, they can.
That's right. So other space operas.
Force.
Yeah, what other space operas do we have? I don't know. Go ahead.
No, if you're looking at movies for inspiration, you've got, and some of these were books too. You've got Titan AE.
Oh yeah, I just watched that last weekend. That's cool.
You've got Valerian,
Mm-hmm.
and the City of a Thousand Planets. You've got Jupiter Rising, Fifth Element, like you mentioned.
Yep.
Chronicles of Riddick. All of those are space opera. Some may be darker than others.
Mm-hmm. I would consider Firefly space opera.
Oh yeah.
Even though it seems a little gritty, you're still you are talking about the solar system as a whole, a small group of folks, small group of big damn heroes, high stakes, grand stories, and that's kind of our first trope here, right?
Yeah, Farscape would be
That's another
TV
great
series.
Yeah.
Farscape. Oh, I've been watching
Battlestar Galactica.
Yep. I've been watching Stargate
Oh, that's
with my daughter. Yeah,
that's space opera because it traverses space, even if they aren't all using spacecraft.
Mm-hmm. They do in the later seasons. They do get into their traveling across, but yeah,
they do have ships eventually. But yeah, at first it's all through the Stargates, of course.
And again, it's all
spoilers. Sorry.
Well, and it's all about, and again, it's all about that grand story of the whole solar system is in danger of the enemy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so cool.
Babylon 5. There's another one.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That was a great one.
I'll have to watch that one again.
Yeah,
for sure. I love it.
Great.
Got to get through the first season, though, man. Oh,
yeah. There's a ton, and what most people love about serialized sci-fi TV shows and movies is space opera. There's a ton of them out there.
Yeah.
I can, and you go into books beyond the first movie. You can Dark Matter is another good TV show. Killjoys.
Killjoys.
Another one.
Yeah, dude, that's a good one.
Crap, lost my train. Oh, books. There's a movie out there, but the books get even more into the mythology, and that's the whole Dune series.
Oh yeah.
Which is even kind of like on the scale of what, when we get into reading about Twilight Imperium, those are almost on the same scale. Those two epic stories.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. The Sci-Fi Channel had made an extended, let's say, short series based on the books, and they were miniseries. They were much more faithful to the books than the actual big movie.
I remember watching
which I found. And yeah, a little smaller budget, so sometimes the graphics might not be as great, but the story was still there. I mean, so amazing how
top-notch acting too. So.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely big scope. You're not just dealing with save the neighborhood or save the country. No, this is save the entire planet or the empire.
Yep.
These houses that spanned multiple systems.
Yeah. And that's pretty much, and we've pretty much gone over this first trope. The grand stories, singular heroes, high stakes. That's what that is. What's our next trope here?
The last three words in that whole trope is always think big. Mm-hmm. With your stories, your heroes, and your environments.
Yes.
Okay. Now we can go on to the next one.
Next one, which we've already touched as well. You guys want to pick that one up?
I can.
Go ahead.
So, impossible technology, no big deal. So, unlike hard sci-fi, where the space opera technology is rarely a focus, although at the same time it's impossibly advanced and just considered a part of the world around them.
Mm-hmm.
It exists to serve the story, but doesn't drive it, and characters are always walking around with these implausible, nasty weapons and armors and gear.
Ships.
And their ships are going to have, disintegrator beams or force fields, tractor beams, and they'll have flying cars and all kinds of shit. And a common example, of course, is faster than light travel, which, is still to our science impossible. But in space opera, there's always a way. It's either a fuel source or a device or a new science that they figured out, a way to open wormholes, whatever it may be. There's a way to get from point A to point B quickly so that you can have these galaxy-spanning stories.
Exactly. And I ran a Starfinder. I would consider that space opera. That whole setting, most definitely. That whole
Andromeda.
Andromeda. Oh yeah.
I just thought of.
Remember that. Yeah. So this idea of, you know what? I got this laser pistol. I have to put this thing in it, and it'll shoot. Who cares? It's just going to shoot out a friggin' laser beam, or maybe a particle weapon or something like that.
Yeah, you can call it what you want. It's an energy weapon, and people have communicators and cyber arms, or artificial intelligences and droids. Robots are common. Everything is done that way, and it's just part of. It's as common as for us having the internet.
Right. So let's see. What's our next trope here? You want to take that one, Stephan? You want me to?
Yeah. And then the next one has a bit of a painting, artistic note. So that's all up my alley. Broad strokes for big canvas. So this is where, as a GM, you want to have a story that is big. Scenes on a grand scale. Again, Star Wars, of course, is a go-to for comparison. When you describe a planet, it's not just a planet like Earth. No, it's a desert planet. It's a water planet. The whole thing is one environment most of the time. An ice planet. Very rarely you'll have a planet that has multiple ecosystems like Earth, but usually, and then you'll have asteroid fields all over the place. Huge ships, as well. Of course, you've got alien species, different types of humans, maybe that have colonized different worlds. So they may almost be the equivalent of different races. Yep. So,
and then I like. Go ahead, Tony.
I like the fact that they talk about like your governments kind of have broad scopes as well. They have these, your governments they're not minute. Like, anybody that has ever spent 5 minutes trying to understand modern politics knows that it's a freaking jumbled up mess. But in interstellar politics, your factions are large and sweeping, and they all have the similar ideals. And you might have the outlying straggler that has, sits on the fence, but the scope of things is a large group. They all have the same ideals and culture, and
a planetary government kind of thing.
Yes.
Just like, in some cases, and we go back to Star Trek, where, sometimes when you meet a new race, it's an entire government that represents the planet. Almost everyone is dressed the same kind of way.
Yeah, that's right.
And they only have a bit of a forehead, difference.
A forehead wrinkle that makes them totally alien.
That's right. Exactly. Or they have a spoon in the middle of their forehead. Sorry, I've been watching Deep Space Nine. The Cardassians. I like this.
Oh, you've been watching Keeping Up with the Cardassians, huh?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. I like this last sentence in the first paragraph here. Space opera is about drama and story, not minutia. So don't get wrapped up in the details. Like we said, they have those broad strokes covering, your different worlds, and have a skeleton there. You don't really have to get into the details.
Oh, and that's a great way to use advantage, triumph, despair, threat. Those broad strokes, despair and threat, not knowing the minutia can come into play. Little cultural minutia, and advantage and triumph, little cultural things that your players can throw as players. Hey, I got 2 advantage. Well, I happen to know these guys really like Gok. or whatever that freaking worm food is, you know. And I'm gonna say that our cook had some on hand, and he prepared it for him. You know, those kinds of things are great in these kinds of settings.
Yep. And as a GM, be open to that. Be open to those little ideas that your players have. Listen to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it's great.
I remember a situation where you were running us, Chris, through Star Wars Adventures, the first one on the planet with the old separate ship. Yeah.
Cholgana,
separate ship. Mm-hmm. And we were suddenly faced with these little swarms of insects or whatever, and I just picked up some local reeds or things or plants to swat them away. And since I've had some advantages, I said, well, the sap that's coming out of this sort of tangles them up. I don't remember the exact, but acts almost like a sap that tangles them up. So that's minutia. It's like, you didn't think of it. I didn't think of it in the hand ahead of time, but it's part of the world now. It's like, all right, there's a plant that has sap that forms almost like a web when you're whiffling it around.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, Chris, what about aliens and androids?
They're there. Who cares where they came from? You don't necessarily have to worry about, big corporations are going to be destroying as all these androids are going to be taken over. With our jobs and scrap. Yeah. Oh, no, but hey, a planet.
Back.
Oh, sorry.
That's right. I'll
be back.
It might be happening. That might be happening on a planet, where androids are being replaced. Your laborers are being replaced with androids, and there's an issue there, and you're on that planet, and you have to deal with it. But genetically engineered hybrids, even holograms, all those kinds of things are here. Let's see. And like I said, interspecies diplomacy will probably be part of it. Your androids taking over jobs of other people too. If you want to put a little bit of what are we saying, like Shadows of the Beanstalk into your space opera, feel free. Let's see. So basically, it's replacing the story and excitement over realism. Again, it's another. There's that whole theme. It doesn't really matter. And then your aliens, they're out there, and do they speak your language? Sure, everybody could speak Common or whatever. But if there is a point where communication is a barrier, that could be an interesting story to kind of figure out, how do we communicate with these aliens and whatever.
The key is that the commonplace aliens are very human-like in not only in their look, their feel, their cultures. I've heard players, and this is just me, I've heard people say that they can't play anything other than a human. And honestly, come on now. You're human. You can play something else. They're essentially human. They're just human light, is what they are.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they have different quirks, but they're essentially a human personality.
Well,
that's right.
In many of these settings, sometimes they'll focus on a certain aspect, let's say, of human behavior, and focus on it. Like Klingons are warriors. Okay,
or even human culture.
Yeah, they take Vikings in space, basically.
That's right.
Kardashians are very manipulative. The Kardashians too.
Speaking of Klingons, I just watched the Trouble with Tribbles episode where the Deep Space Nine people go back there and Worf is around a table. They're like, "Wait a second, those are Klingons?" And he's like, "Yeah, we don't talk about that part of our history. We only talk about it internally to the Empire."
Oh, that's it. One of them will be extremely merchant and greedy. Ferengi. So you can. The races sometimes are almost not caricatures, but they just push a bit one particular aspect maybe of human behavior, because humans are very, very varied. Like a lot of game systems, they always talk about how humans are adaptable and don't exactly fit one mold. Well,
Right.
Sometimes alien races sometimes will fit a specific one. Ones are some are scientists, some like the Vulcans, some are warrior-like, some are merchants, and so forth.
That's right.
So
No, the last
you can play
paragraph.
other races than humans.
Yeah. The last paragraph there, Tony. What do you say?
And the last paragraph, what that does is because of the players' races and the races that are available do that. They have that kind of assumed human behavior. When there is something that is completely, utterly inhuman and alien, it becomes interesting. It becomes a story element. It becomes something that you can, build an entire story around it with horror and revulsion that the creatures would inspire by all the other human-like aliens all the other human-like aliens around you. And those are great little story elements when you have everybody, hey, we're all aliens, but that's crazy and weird over there.
Why does he have 6 arms? Because he's a skitter dancer, damn it.
That's
Skittermander.
Maybe there's only one race and that's a hive mind, and they're attacking everyone.
That's right. And maybe you're in a tavern and you have to travel between worlds.
That's another.
Oh, wait a second.
another-
That's something else. That's another TV show. That's right.
Exactly.
Ooh, wait a second.
Which, when we talked about speech or communication, that just reminded me. We watched recently the first episode of Farscape, which,
Yep.
the human character, of course, John Crichton, doesn't know how to speak alien languages. Obviously, you hear them speak their own language, and one of these little drones aboard the ship injects him with these translating
Nanite things.
bacteria.
Oh,
Yeah,
bacteria. That's right.
bacteria. One of the guys, Rigel, explains this to him. So yes, they rest at the base of your cerebellum and they translate. That's all they do. What? I've got bacteria that translate. Yeah, but that's all they do. Like, all right. Apparently, in their sector of the galaxy, almost everyone, is injected at birth with these things. So,
That's awesome.
it's like, no, universal translators? Nah, you don't need that. You've got
we don't.
nanites. You've got bacteria.
That's cool.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to slice it.
Exactly.
Yep. And you know what? It doesn't have to make sense. It
No,
really doesn't. As long as it works.
Exactly. This is how we do it. We're just calling it bacteria. They also brush their teeth with a worm that, instead of using toothbrush, it's a worm that feeds off of whatever tartar and
That's
food that's
disgusting.
in between. Yeah, but leaves apparently a nice minty smell, scent on your mouth. You just, as long as you don't swallow it.
That's great. So our last trope here. What do we have here, Tony, for our last trope?
The last trope is this seems familiar. And really, this one comes down to the space opera settings feature familiar tropes from other genres. This likely stems from its favoring of adventure and excitement over its scientific accuracy, but whether it places the future in another galaxy altogether or space opera setting, it's going to have some of the elements of a Western or a medieval fantasy or a detective story, or just about anything else can be a part of. That's why when we were listing off all these different sources, I mean, we went space Western clear out there with,
Firefly. That's a
Firefly.
Shit, they even had cattle that they transported on a spaceship, and that's cool.
Space opera settings can include duty-bound starfaring knights or desperados with high-tech revolvers. Characters could wield advanced melee weapons, even though guns are equally advanced. And depending on the setting, plausible explanations might be provided for why they believe in such anachronisms. But the thing is to simply remember Chris's favorite rule.
The rule of cool.
There we go.
That's right.
Everybody.
One
And there's
advantage.
the sidebar on page 65, 165 is pretty sweet. That goes over the rule of cool.
Yeah. One advantage to this about this trope it has as a GM is that you can borrow literally from anywhere. Video games, books, TV, comic books, movies,
Current events.
your current events, your crazy uncle's drunken stories, whatever, and throw them in there. They'll fit. Just reskin it to make it alien and weird.
Well, here you go. Yeah. So a train robbery, right? Mm-hmm. We had a train robbery in the Solo movie, right?
Yep, pretty much a train heist.
A train heist, and they even had one. They had one in Firefly too.
Yeah, yep. So it's just reskinning the look of it, but the setting. I like I said, we talked a little bit about my Dragonstar setting, which is pretty much a space opera. It's basically Dungeons and Dragons in space. So I'm hoping to recreate that. So you'll have your instead of having alien races, they're still alien, but they're the traditional fantasy races of elves and dwarves and halflings, and your standard kind of classes modified a little bit. So you've got your fighter, you've got your sorcerer, your cleric, but slightly modified for the Galactic Empire.
Sweet. That is a great segue there, Stephan. It's as if you may have planned that. Did you?
Almost. I may have thought about it in advance.
You may have thought about it? Awesome. Well, go ahead. You're segueing into, on a segue.
And segueing to the example setting that, of course, Fantasy Flight Games has, Twilight Imperium.
Nope. No, we're not. You totally screwed that up. Oh, come on, Stephan. No, we're saving that one for our setting the tone. But your segue is into the character options, because you're talking about the elves and dwarves and all that.
Right.
Yeah, with our different species here.
Well, that's it. I've already worked on kind of converting or adapting those races simply. So, you've got your drow, your elves, your humans, of course, half elves, etc., even half dragons, and sort of an android species called Solmex.
Cool.
Nice. So, and careers, of course, your fighters, your druids, your pilots, your leaders, diplomats, and so forth, hackers.
Excellent.
All right, so on page 182, we get into those character options for any generic space opera. They list ones that are available pretty much in Twilight Imperium, but these are pretty much generic.
Yeah.
You're going to have, because the first one is as generic as it gets, with your animalistic alien. And animalistic aliens in space opera could be all kinds of different things. Maybe you have the lion-headed, what are they, Hakan or whatever it is?
The Hakan, yes.
The Hakan.
From,
yeah.
Or maybe you're turtle-headed aliens, or you're playing, cat-like in some other form.
Cat-like, wolf-like.
Reptilian.
Yep.
Now, there's 100 different ways to slice it, but traditionally, these species are slightly stronger, faster, or tougher than a human, and they share the traits of their non-sapient Terran species that they mimic. Mm-hmm. So the example that they have here is basically the cat alien, and they're going to have they have a 3 brawn, 3 agility, 2 intellect, 2 cunning, 1 willpower, 2 presence. So they already have unbalanced stats.
Yep.
And then their wound threshold is 10 plus brawn, strains 8 plus willpower. So those are, fairly well balanced. And then the special ability they give you here. An animalistic alien starts with 1 rank in athletics, coordination, or resilience during character creation and still can't train at above rank 2. And then natural weapons. An animalistic alien adds +2 damage to any brawl check they make. Now this could be a grasping tentacle, it could be claws, it could be scything blades, it could be talons, teeth.
A bite, yeah.
A beak. It could be all kinds of things.
Horns on your four-armed minotaur.
Exactly. Right. This just gives you a basis for a simple species ability. Mm-hmm. And then because their stats are slightly out of balance and because they have a couple of they have really nice natural weapons, their XP is a little shorter than the average beginning character, with only 70 starting XP.
Right. 80 actually.
No, it's 70 for the.
I see 80 in my book.
Do you? On
really?
page 182?
Yeah, 182. I see 80, but.
Well, this is a conundrum. I'm looking at my first printing book. Did you happen to buy it a later round or something?
Maybe, but it's still version 1.0 that I've got.
That's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I was thinking you can switch an ability, like, for example, we're talking about terrestrial animals. You could have your fish people just switch out natural weapons for amphibian.
Mm-hmm.
They can breathe water.
Yep.
Oh. And still have 80 XP.
And because
Or
it's
70,
so low,
depending on your book.
70 feels it better only because you have threes in 2 abilities.
And they're both the primary combat stats. That's important.
Brawn and agility. Yeah.
Yeah, so the 70 is not bad. Now 80, both work. Depends on what your balancing point is. Like the standard human in the core rulebook was 110, but then you go to the standard human in Shadows of the Beanstalk and they were 120. So it all depends on what your starting point is, and what your standard human is. So.
Well, for my Dragonstar setting, I'm actually giving a little bit extra XP to everybody just to represent that everyone has access to the high technology, so they get better education. But at least everyone's starting at least on the same level, even though they're higher than the core book. It still balances out. I'm just like giving them free XP.
Cool.
Yeah, and by kicking that starting XP up to for the base human to 120. That gives you more leeway for those species abilities when you're making your own species as a GM to play with, because once you get down to 70 or below, you're really limiting what they can do with that XP as a starting character.
Yeah, it's start. Yeah,
exactly.
So, let's go on to the next one.
And the next one is the psionic character or psychic aliens. Those have supernatural powers, but not magic necessarily, but powers of the mind. Usually, of course, they'll have much higher willpower and intellect, trading that off for being, of course, physically weaker than, say, the Hakan, which we just talked about. Mm-hmm. However, your character, of course, gets in return 3 unique abilities at start. So you don't even have to buy them. You can read minds, manipulate some emotions, and even harm opponents just by thinking of it. And of course,
that hurt me with his thoughts.
That's right.
Exactly. He told me my mommy didn't like me.
That's right. And you just thought it.
Yeah. And of course, what they look like can depend. They can look like the gray aliens that some people hear about being abducted by. They could be Vulcans. They could simply.
That really happened. No.
Yeah. All right. Where did they probe you?
Wouldn't you like
in
to
his
know,
belly button.
Stephan? Yeah, that's right.
It's like a Sarlacc pit.
Yes, exactly.
Apparently it is.
Well,
Yeah, so they have
I'll have to inspect that on the Con.
Oh, hang on a second. That just went on the internet right there. So,
Yes, there's no place I won't go for you little listeners, to check out these things. Fact-finding missions.
you're all heart, Stephan.
He's a giver.
He is a giver, isn't he?
All right.
So they have a lower brawn of a 7, but an 11 plus willpower, which is pretty cool.
Well,
and
that's
I
it.
think this is pretty
because they'll be
nasty.
using more of their mental power, so they have a bit more strain to reflect that.
Knowing the current thoughts. This is pretty sweet. Mm-hmm. Discipline versus discipline check on that. Mm-hmm. Mind Shaper.
Mind Shaper is the one that allows, an opposed discipline versus vigilance against a living creature in medium range, and if he succeeds, you can cause the target to adopt an emotional state that you choose. So it's like, I'll make Tony feel really sad, because he's white and he can't go in the sun for very long.
Nobody loves me.
That's right.
Oh, people keep laughing at me because I've got a Sarlacc pit belly button.
Oh, yeah, that would be me. That would be the Mind Breaker one that you would do on me, right? A discipline versus resilience check to somebody within medium range. Yeah. Cause the target 1 strain.
Yeah, 1 strain. Plus additional strain per 2 success.
Yeah.
And then for 3 advantage or a triumph, you can even... can be spent to cause a target to suffer a wound. It's like, oh no, blood vessels are bursting.
Oh my gosh, that's nasty.
Ow, the brain pain.
Yeah.
That hurts.
But I would never do that to you, Chris, or to
No,
I
you
like
totally
you.
wouldn't.
brothers. So
There we go. All right.
What's next, Chris?
Our next one, dude, these are like space robots, man. Whatever you want them to be. Whatever shape, size. Could be a crab-like tank. A hover sphere.
Exterminate.
That's right. With the that's right. Put that what do you call it? The toilet plunger on your nose.
Yeah.
And start going and exterminating people. So this is basic. You got ones and everything. 10 for brawn for your wound threshold plus 10 plus brawn for your wounds. 10 plus will for your strain threshold. But you get 175 XP to spend on whatever you want. You get
Because basically you're a blank slate.
pretty much, and you get to choose 6 of the 8 career skills instead of just 4 that you could put a rank into. Robots don't need to eat, sleep, or drink. They're not affected by toxins and poisons, so all those things. They don't reduce strain threshold if you have cybernetics, if you're using that in your system, if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. This is actually kind of neat. The networked intelligence automatically add a success to intellect and willpower based checks for each other friendly character of the same species to a maximum of 3. So with that, that's kind of neat. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then they're inorganic.
They use Wi-Fi to connect to each other. So.
That's right. Put their heads together. And then they're healed by the mechanic skill instead of medicine. And then the robots increase your soak by 1. Kind of maybe that, that plating, armor plating, whatever, that you would have on.
Yeah, just an iron chassis. You can suffer a bit more damage.
Yep. Yeah. So this is, you can make anything from your big, bulky labor droids to a sneaky spy-like droid or,
And that's it. This is literally the droid copied over.
Pretty much.
Star Wars set.
Yeah, your annoying protocol droid or the very useful astromech.
There you go.
So the last species we have here is the Vanguard species. Alien race, humanity's superior in the galaxy. These aliens are more advanced scientifically, culturally, and even artistically. They're just freaking better than you primitive human scum.
Which is, everyone hates them anyway. They're space elves, basically.
Yeah.
Why would you want to play Why would you want to play Vanguard?
They have 2 brawn, agility, intellect, and willpower, 1 cunning, 3 presence. They end up with a 9 in their brawn, plus brawn for wounds. They have a 9 plus willpower for strain, and they have 100 earned XP or starting XP. And since they're know-it-alls, they're going to start with a rank in knowledge.
Yep.
And then they have this space is our birthright.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's totally a great name for that talent or that species ability, and that is a Vanguard just adds 1 automatic advantage to the result of any astrocartography or knowledge checks that they make, because they know it all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do.
Been there, done that.
And then high-tech baubles, great way to give them that superior kind of look is to give them some superior gear. So they start with an additional 500 credits worth of starting gear above and beyond what the average
I like the name of that, high-tech baubles.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Minbari. The Minbari are Vanguard.
That is a great great example. Minbari from Babylon 5. Yes.
Yeah. They're high tech. They're haughty. They're very developed artistically and culturally. They have castes, and they can kick ass because they've been there around for over 1,000 years, longer in space. So
yeah, they were aware that other races actually existed as opposed to man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're not the center of the universe, but we're damn near.
In our minds, we are.
Yep.
So. Even though it's not the focus of the setting, the next thing we want to talk about is that gear.
Well,
because that does give it that flavor. Those high-tech toys.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
So we're not going to go over every piece of gear because there's actually quite a bit in here.
Yeah, there was. I was surprised. I was looking through. I'm like, wow, this is quite the list of ranged weapons.
Yeah.
But there are some highlights. No, go ahead, Stephan.
And you can get inspired by all kinds of different settings, from Star Wars, Star Trek, Warhammer 40K, Firefly, Even some of the weapons in Shadow of the Beanstalk can just be uplifted to sci-fi.
True.
Most assuredly. I mean, you can have your space katanas, same as you can have your monoblade katana in a.
Exactly.
But there are some that we can focus on and that kind of give that feel for this particular setting. And I'd like to just kind of start with the lasers. Because those are kind of an important part of a space opera. There's almost always some kind of lasers.
Yeah.
And we have 3 different types. We have a laser pistol, a laser rifle, and a laser cannon. And the big differences are the pistol is real light. It's handheld. It's just simple. It's got Pierce 2, does 6 damage, and it has 5 damage, and it has a crit of 3. Very simple base line.
Yep.
Your rifle's a little bit more damage, goes out to long range, and its pierce is increased to 4. Then you end up with the laser cannon, which we're talking, that big laser that is either shoulder mounted or the dude has to wear a special harness to carry it, or I'm picturing aliens. They've got those, those swivel harnesses.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Those were cool.
Even those were slug throwers, but still, dude. And it uses gunnery, though. Uses gunnery when you,
It uses the gunnery skill. It has a cumbersome rating to reflect that you have to be a big burly dude or chick to carry this, or sexless even in an alien, to carry this thing around.
Yep.
And then it dials that pierce up to 14 and cranks it to breach 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Breach 2, good lord.
It's punching through the sides of ships.
And basically, everybody, if you don't remember, breach is equal to 1... Breach 1 is equal to like 10 points of soak. So that's 20 points of soak right there that you're...
Well, so that would be like Pierce 20 kind of thing.
Right. Or if you're talking... I mean, we're talking vehicle-based combat here where you can punch through like armor with it, right?
Okay, and each one uses a different skill. So ranged light, because pistols are just one-handed weapons, very simple and concealable like a handgun today.
Right.
And laser rifle, of course, range heavy because it's 2 hands. You have to brace it a bit more to be more accurate. And gunnery, well, of course, it's a cannon. So, totally different mindset, and of course, much greater range as well.
Do you have something you want to highlight there, Chris?
Well, only because Baka loves them so much. Grenades, specifically. Dude, this particle grenade is nasty.
Oh, yeah.
It says it releases a blast of high-energized particles that disrupt the nervous systems of most organic creatures. Whenever you throw concussive anything on a weapon and you can activate it, that's that's almost a game changer. That's close. So that's, again, it's a grenade, so it's range light. You throw up to a short distance. Got a crit of 4, but it's not the crit that you're going to be spending those advantage on. It's going to be the blast and concussive, what do you call it, qualities there. Maybe a disorient if you have enough, too. But, those are pretty nasty. And would this grenade lobber, would you be able to shoot them with the grenade lobber? I wasn't quite clear. Yeah, if you use a different kind of grenade, such as a particle grenade, change the damage and crit ratings. So you have something to shoot it at a longer range. Long range, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that combo there is, Baka will be twitching.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Stephan?
Yeah, Steph, what do you got? What do you think?
I like the little sign. It seems innocuous when you read it. The Sliver rocket launcher. Almost sounds like something really sleek, almost a very stealth rocket, but nasty. I mean, extreme range, like the laser cannon.
Yep.
Base damage of 15. Ouch.
Yeah.
Critical 2, so very easy to crit.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Expensive as hell, though.
but it's really expensive. So only your top military will probably have it, or your elite mercenaries. Limited ammo, just 3 shots in it. And then, it's cumbersome, so it's big and heavy still, even though it may look sleek. And it takes time to prepare. So, you get 1 round to you have to spend a maneuver to actually prepare it for the next attack. But then you get, where your laser cannon had breach 2, this one has breach 4.
Yeah, this is your anti-vehicle weapon. Definitely.
That's it. And then it's vicious, 5, so you have plus 50 to any crits you may get with only 2 advantage. Yeah, it might happen.
Wow.
And if you miss, well, it has guided 4, so it's a chance of, swerving around and coming back and hitting your opponent in the back of the head.
That's right. It's a daunting check being guided 4, but still, you're saying there's a chance.
Yep. That's why you have story points too, so upgrade those.
Damn. Yeah, that's nasty, dude.
Mm-hmm.
That is pretty nasty.
So you got a guided missile, basically that'll just, pretty much decimate, your BSM 2000. What BSU 2000? What does BSU stand for? Blow stuff up.
Awesome.
And so moving on into the armors. Now, they only list 3 armors, but they are pretty much, standard. You're going to find any armor from any setting. You're going to find in the space opera. You can have dudes walking around in plate mail. It's perfectly fine. It's going to be normal. The one that I would like to focus on, though, is the personal force field.
Yep.
Because that speaks to this genre and also harkens back to Dune.
Yes.
Your personal force fields are a mainstay of space opera sci-fi, although many settings are primarily exclusively used for ships and other large targets. Sophisticated technology and high power draw mean their personal force fields are rare and expensive. So it doesn't give you any extra soak, but it gives you a shit ton of defense. And yeah, it's rare. It's rarity 8 and 2,000 of your very precious starting credits. So you're not going to have it as a starting character. But personal force field, 3 defense. Damn.
That's 3 setback dice.
Yep,
before you even take cover.
Yeah. Wow, dude.
You take cover, you're
That's
looking at
sweet.
4 setback dice. Amazeballs.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Go ahead, hit me.
Yeah, give it a try.
So then we have a couple pieces of regular just gear.
Yep.
And,
I like the comm bead is kind of interesting. Where you just throw a little bead in your ear, you can communicate up to 100 kilometers. Or if you could tie into like the planetary communications, and it's anyone on the same planet. That's kind of cool.
Well, yeah, the dark matter has that. That's how the characters all communicate. A little implant in the ear.
Mm-hmm.
From the ship to the planet, and if the planet actually has communication gear, not a problem.
Yep.
Just by making a thought that you're dialing somebody up, you don't even have to call their name. You just think that you're calling somebody, and it intuitively does so.
Yeah, or voice activation if you prefer, or whatever. But yeah, my thought could be really easy.
Yep.
To explain.
Yep.
It's science.
Yeah, you don't have to explain it. Science, dude. Go on.
Yep. Exactly. And in a smart system, that's just that's an iPad, or whatever, on your wrist or in your pocket. Just a personal computer with just a weak AI that you could communicate with, like a computer. What is this race? And then it'll give you what? It's like, who cares if it needs to be connected up to the database or whatever? It'll just know. And basically, it'll just give you a boost die on any intelligence-based checks you make to figure out stuff when you're exploring those planets. That's cool.
That's it.
All right, so now we get into the adversaries. And I like, as the core rulebook has done in every setting they've given us, we have a pirate.
Yes, we do, because Why not?
Well, this one's in space.
Yeah, it is.
So, yeah, I'll go, space pirates. They're a staple in many space opera. Of course, whenever you have ships, civilians, especially civilian ships, you'll have people who want to steal from you. So, yes, they resemble the high seas cousins, swaggering, uncultured rogues with a taste for plunder and mayhem. Har, har, har. Give me some of your Romulan ale.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Cool.
And they're minions, of course, because, that way you can mow through them. But, their strength in number, that's their special ability. The more there are, because, they're much more courageous in groups, so you add a boost die to their combat checks when there's at least 2 of their friendly members of their own crew, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, if they find themselves, almost like surrounded, outnumbered, or with no other allies, well, then they suffer setbacks. So,
that's right.
It's like, no, don't hurt me this time. I'll be nice to you. I didn't mean to board your ship and and steal all your Romulan ale.
Exactly. Oh, here you go, Tony. Here's your monomolecular cutlass as one of their pieces of gear. I love it.
Yep.
That's pretty sweet.
Yep. And then they have a special rule there for if maybe doing a minion group of 2 space pirates armed with a short-range cutting laser. That's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sweet.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
It's a little alternate rule. So I'd like to talk about the next one.
You do it. You do that one.
Because it's my thing.
Yeah. Which
Xenomorph horror.
Oh, that reminds me. Dude, Dark Matter should be coming out soon, right? Or Deep Madness, I mean.
Yes.
Should be shipping soon, I hope.
So the Xenomorph horror on countless planets in your galaxy, characters are going to encounter all manner of alien beasts. This specimen is some breed of alpha predator on its homeworld. Mm-hmm. And they've left the description particularly vague so that you can fill in the blanks.
Right.
You can turn it into a saurian carnivore, or a tentacled lurker, or an aquatic devilfish, or an insect-like 7-foot tall black exoskeleton with acid for blood thing.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Or something
that bursts out of your chest.
Or something that's a ugly motherfucker. Like the Predator, right?
That's right. This is a rival, so it's going to have the basic survival type skills. It's not going to have any like advanced skills, vigilance, brawl, stealth, survival. Simple. Cool ability, Apex Predator. At the start of their first turn in the encounter, all opponents must make a hard discipline check as an out-of-turn incidental. If they fail, they're immobilized until the start of their next turn. You're frozen in fear. Yep. If they fail with threat, they are staggered until the start of their next turn instead.
I'm wondering, hey, Stephan, in your book, is that a despair or is that a threat for you? That feels like if you roll a despair, you're staggered, but that's one threat and you're staggered?
One threat.
Holy crap, dude.
Yeah, there's one threat.
That's
staggered.
Already.
If you're using these things are supposed to be very scary. That means they are. That's why it's written as a special ability.
Yep.
As opposed to just a copying of the terrifying adversary talent.
That's awesome.
And it says if you're using the fear rules, this counts as a fear check. So other effects that may affect a fear check may apply, like some talents.
Cool.
The weapon of choice would be a thrashing appendage.
Mm-hmm.
With it has knockdown and spend 2 advantage to knock all other opponents engaged with the target prone.
Yeah.
So it's not just the
person you hit.
No, you can knock anyone nearby over because it's thrashing.
It's a thrashing appendage, of course.
And then they have a vicious maw within a maw. And that, of course, being a nasty bite with damage 10, critical 3, pierce 3, vicious 3. Yeah.
Ouch.
It's going to just poke right through your skull and eat your brains.
Right. Or come out of your gut.
That's it. Even if you're wearing some of that special marine armor, it's like, yeah, punch.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And I might steal that Apex Predator from my race I want to introduce in my Dragonstar campaign, which I'm going to use the D&D race of the Slod, the sort of toad-like race.
That can impregnate you.
Yeah, they can kind of impregnate you. They're a species that haven't shown up in the Empire yet. They're a new threat.
Cool.
So,
yeah, the Apex Predator, that's a nasty ability. I love it.
Yeah, that's it.
Speaking of nasty, so I'm reading a Nanoswarm, which is next. It's a rival. Holy fuck nuts. These guys are nasty. So, they're definitely popular in space opera settings, your nanoswarms or whatever. Buzzing clouds or amorphous blobs of micro machines swarming on the ground. Just picture this. A swarm of these things are coming towards your person. You know what? They have 1s in everything except for their agility, which is a 4. They have 2 ranks in coordination, but their special ability here, Swarm. You have the damage dealt to the swarm before applying soak. Oh, by the way, they have a wound threshold of 40.
Yeah.
Soak 1, it doesn't really matter, but if you're having the damage. But this is interesting, though. You do half the damage before applying soak, unless the weapon has blast or burn quality, regardless whether you've activated the quality or not. So that's kind of an interesting thing. That's the first time I've seen something like that, too. That's a neat little precedence.
It seems to be unique to the swarms. I've seen Terranoth has a swarm of scorpions, too, and a little bit like that. Yeah, half the damage.
Okay, gotcha.
Incoming, but if you have something that does blast or burn, even if you don't have enough advantage to activate it,
you do full damage.
Yeah.
Okay, so this consuming swarm ability is nasty. So they spend a maneuver, so you make an opposed coordination check. By the way, they're rolling 2 yellows and 2 greens versus whatever you got. And you target
I don't know a lot of players that put points in coordination.
I seriously doubt it either. You target one engaged opponent to immobilize them until the end of their next turn. Okay? So, at the start of its turn, the opponent suffers 3 wounds, and the swarm heals 3 wounds. Okay? Now, get this. They're tiny little pincers.
Yep.
They do damage 1, critical 3, doesn't matter, but pierce 3, and they add 2 boost dice if the target is immobilized.
So they swarm over their opponents.
They just start munching on them and healing. These are nasty. I love it.
And when you say
your gelatinous cube, dude.
Well, that's
kind of
it.
isn't it?
And when you say suffer 3 wounds, there's no soak applied to that. It's just it just seeps through cracks and stuff and attacks the nice fleshy bits. Or if they're nano swarms that like metal, oh no, I'm okay. I'm a droid. I'm a robot. No. These are special metal.
Yeah,
they
so it
like
says
metal and silicone. So you can have that too.
Yepers. Yeah, so that's pretty nasty. I love it. Of course.
Yeah. At first, I thought, swarms are pushovers. They only have 1 brawl and 1 brawn. Like, it's only 2 dice. Well, 1 dice, 1 yellow. They'll never hit anything. But when you reread the special abilities, like, oh no,
they don't have to hit.
No,
they just have to crawl over you.
If they've managed to get a toehold on you and just swarm on your legs, all right, you're immobilized now.
Right.
Then we use the tiny pincers.
Yeah, exactly, because that's a maneuver to mobilize you. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Tony, what do we have next?
The alien warlord is a sapient individual from an alien species. While most of the species may be peace-loving or honorable, this character has decided to conquer a significant portion of the galaxy by force.
That's great.
When describing this individual, keep in mind the profile represents a big, tough, charismatic leader. Doesn't matter what race. If you don't want to invent your own foot soldiers, simply copy the Space Pirates.
Well,
and
you'll
call them
always want to copy Space Pirates regardless.
Yes.
Make them goblins.
Or maybe the Xenomorph Horror as a pet.
Yes.
And maybe he's got a satchel of nano swarms that he'll just throw at you, which I know my alien warlord will.
So yeah, this is your nemesis. So he's tough, got a lot of ranks, a lot of skills, got a lot of characteristics. Looking at 18 wounds and 18 strain threshold with a soak of 5. So he's Mr. Badass. And 2 defense.
Yeah.
He's got Adversary 1. He's got a cool ability here called Tactical Direction, which, is simple. Spend a maneuver, direct one friendly minion group within medium range. That group may perform a free maneuver or add a boost dice to its check. Simple enough.
Nice.
And then he's got some fancy armor, fancy weapons, and simple as that. This dude is just a leader and a great one to reskin for just about anything.
Exactly.
Oh my god. So did you read? Okay, so he has a platinum weave cloak, but he also has a crimson banner of glorious conquest. And a sniveling servant to carry the banner of glorious conquest.
Yes, my lord.
Yes,
I will
master.
carry your banner into battle.
Sally forth!
I love it when they put little things in here like that. Like they're not taking themselves too seriously.
No.
Rule of
Well,
cool, baby.
It's space opera. You've got Ming the Merciless, who looks cool.
Yeah, he does.
With his
We
toadies.
completely forgot Flash Gordon.
Yeah, Flash Gordon. Yeah, there you go. In some way,
You're right.
In some ways, even some of the cartoon stuff like He-Man.
Masters of the universe.
Not in space, but space opera. There's technology that almost is like magic.
Mm-hmm.
Sniveling little toadies.
There you go. Nice.
All right, we have one last adversary. Stefan, you want to knock that out?
Sure.
Yeah.
Why do I get all the psionic ones?
I'll take it if you want.
Yeah.
No, it's
brain,
okay.
You're the brain of the outfit.
I was just saving the best for last.
Is he the
That's
brains
you.
of the outfit?
So there we go. So the telepath, which is a nemesis. Throughout the galaxy, some alien species your characters encounter are going to have strange and terrible abilities. How this particular creature possesses the powers of telepathy is unknown, but it seems to be able to control and dominate the minds of others.
I like that.
So yes, he concentrates on his mental abilities. So he's weak physically, only 1 brawn, 1 agility. So he'll trip over the flowers in the carpet. But 4 intellect, 3 cunning, 4 willpower, and 2 presence. He's a powerhouse. He'll play 3D chess, against 5 opponents and still win. So,
Well, that's because of his first ability there. Holy monkeys.
well, that's it. So, adversary 2. So already pretty tough.
Uh-huh.
Of course, most of his skills are all, mostly social or mental abilities. And his ability says, I know what you're thinking. Yeah, he knows what you did last summer. So when targeting an opponent with a social skill check, downgrade the difficulty a number of times equal to the number of challenge dice in the pool, replacing basically all challenge dice, well, almost all challenge dice with difficulty dice instead.
No, it's all of them.
Yeah.
You replace all of them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when targeted by a social skill, downgrade the ability of the check a number of times equal to the number of proficiency dice.
That's so nasty. There's only going to be green and purple dice against this guy. Ever.
No, well, I don't know about that though.
Well,
When you could still flip a story point, right?
yeah.
It wouldn't downgrade that, right?
True.
Basically,
No.
it's if I'm attacking this thing with a social attack, all of my ranks and whatever I got don't matter.
No,
it really
exactly,
doesn't
no.
matter.
So those would be downgraded first, and then you can still spend a point to upgrade at least 1.
Yeah,
I would still allow that because it's a story point. I mean,
but you still wouldn't.
yeah, but still, and then mind bleed.
That's so. This is a nasty ability.
Yeah, he's a powerhouse. It's like no, I know what you're thinking ahead of time. So all your little arguments, I can counter them.
Yeah, and his discipline check is going to be 3 yellow and a green
That's
versus
it.
yours.
So, Yeah, and then Mind Bleed. As an action, they may make an opposed discipline check against a living target. If successful, the target suffers 2 wounds and 2 strain per success.
Wow.
Yes, and the telepath may then spend 4 advantage or triumph tunes to inflict a critical injury on you. So, brain aneurysm.
Basically, yeah.
He's got mind bullets.
Yeah,
He does.
Wham! And then dominate once per encounter. If successful, during the next character's turn, the target's next turn, the telepath, they dictate basically what the actions and maneuvers they can perform. So basically, you're a puppet. Although they do suggest the GM should avoid actions that lead to unavoidable character death. However, such as jumping off towering cliffs or shooting oneself in the head, since that's just not fun.
Whoa. Wait a minute. I disagree. No,
well, that's what is written. So
I know. I'm just kidding.
Just do it
if
anyway.
Your players are okay
and
with
ask
that,
for forgiveness afterwards.
Exactly.
That's it. And I like the equipment, which of course is reminiscent of the most powerful telepath on Earth, a hover chair. Because of course,
great.
with one brawn and 1 agility, they're like I said, they're going to trip over everything. And lifting a tumbler of whiskey is like, oh no, that's way too heavy. I'm going to sprain my wrist.
But there's nothing.
I'll use my mind for that.
There's nothing that you can't have them pull out that gun and put it to their head. They don't have to shoot themselves.
No. That anyway.
Man, those are... Dude, space opera will be tough. These are some nasty abilities, man. These are some nasty adversaries. I love it.
Yeah, and that's just it. I think that's the common theme here, is that your villains are extra specially dialed up to be really tough.
Yeah.
And even your minion group, they're going to put out a lot of damage. Yeah, they're going to die quickly, but they can pound you with those weapons.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. They still have access to the same weapons you do.
Exactly.
It's just, just that you can mow through them. That's all.
That's right. They can have that. They can have that shock armor or that sliver rocket launcher.
Yep. A couple of those troopers, space pirates. Okay, one of them is helping to steady it, and it's like, okay, you fire at them. It's like, oh no. That's when your PC is like, okay, let's use our personal force fields. Maybe that mitigates some of the damage.
Maybe. Yeah, you still have to hit.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So, in the interest of time, because we are getting rather long-winded.
Yeah, we are. Like always.
I think we're going to skip setting the tone today. What do you think, gentlemen?
We could. We can definitely revisit.
Well, the thing is, they've only got a page.
Yeah, there's not a lot there. And
There
if you're
really
going to
isn't.
be playing in Twilight Imperium, you're going to be playing something that only you would know. So,
Right.
Or in a handful of people.
And I'll tell you what I'll do is Stephan found a subreddit post that really goes into a bit more detail that's in here about Twilight Imperium. I'm going to throw that in our show notes for you all to download and look at. So look for that as well. So.
And if we do come back and visit it, I have a couple of links that it's still based off of the board game, but does give you some good ideas to.
Yeah, send me those links. I'll put them in the show notes, Stephan.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that.
All right.
Well,
let's move on to something else then.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Welcome to our favorite part of the show, the part that we call Advantageous Threats, Because there's an S.
Yeah,
it's multiple threats, because there's more than one of us. This is where we build dice pools and then roll them out, and our little scenario that we build, and the other two sort of set up difficulties and try to trip the first players up, and then we just roll the dice and educate the rolls and see what's what, how it turns out. So Just like last time, we'll do youngest first. So Tony.
Man, I'm gonna always go first.
Because you're the baby.
All right. My character, Gilbert Finkelstein, is an animalistic alien, a shark man. He's a mechanic on the starship HMS Vibrotube 1.
Oh, that's great.
A xenomorph horror has been set loose on the ship, and Gil has been tasked by his captain, Lady Quimetria, to kill it. He has a pair of particle grenades.
Oh, good choice.
And a portable motion sensor.
Beep, beep, beep.
And an imagination. He's going to use his 2 intellect with 4 in mechanics. He's not the smartest mechanic, but he's pretty talented. He has 2 ranks in Inventor. He has the talent Go Without from the Genesys Talents Expanded, available on
what does that do again?
the Genesys forums. So Go Without allows him once per encounter or once per session to not have to worry about whether he has the right tools for the job.
Perfect.
Once per session. He can count as having the right tools for the job. So, he sometimes forgets his tool belt, so it's a handy talent to have around.
He's dumb. He's got 2 intellect. Or
he's not the smartest, but he's pretty charismatic for a shock, you know.
He doesn't talk like Jabba Jaw, does he?
Yes, he does. As a matter of fact, it's Gilbert Finkelstein. All right, he's a shock.
So,
Everybody calls him Gil. He's an aspiring porn star too. You don't want to know about that. All right. So,
oh my God.
Fish are friends, not food.
You might have broke me there, Tony.
he also has the talent Natural, which will allow him to reroll if he totally flubs this up. Mechanics or a brawl check. So, what I'd like to do is I'd like to rig a bomb to a drone. I want to use a drone that I might have laying around. I'm going to consider it as having the right tools for the job and use my once per session ability of Go Without. And he's going to have a old decommissioned drone sitting around. He's going to rig these 2 particle grenades to it, and he's going to send it out to hunt the xenomorph horror.
Gotcha.
Using its built-in portable motion sensor kind of thing, right? To kind of search for it.
I happened, as I said, I had a portable motion sensor, which was in the space opera gear, and I do believe it just gave a boost die to perception checks. But really, what that is there for is he's going to rig it to detect specifically the signature of the xenomorph and send this particle grenade laden drone bomb to hunt it down and kill it.
Sweet. So this roll is you creating this device.
Yes.
And going.
Then later roll to, see how it damaged the critter.
So let's see here. I'm thinking it's going to be hard because not everybody can do this.
No.
I'm thinking it's a hard difficulty.
Okay.
Not average. It's not daunting, but I'm thinking hard.
Okay. Yeah, starting with 3 purple.
Is there now there's kind of a time sensitive thing. People may have died. So maybe a setback die because of the stress you're under.
Oh, that's stressful? Gil doesn't really care about people, but okay. We'll go ahead and put it in there.
Well, stressful because he's concerned about his own survival.
Your captain gave you an order to do it quickly.
Yeah, she pays my bills. I better keep her happy. Right,
there you go. That's right. What else? You have the right tools for the job.
I happen to also have 2 ranks in the Inventor talent.
What does that do?
It's an active incidental. When your character makes a check to construct a new item or modify existing ones, use this talent to add a number of boost die to the check equal to your ranks in Inventor.
Well, cool.
In addition, your character may attempt to reconstruct devices that they have heard described but have never seen and do not have any kind of plans or schematics for.
Well, you don't have any plans for this. You're just popping it out. You're like, yeah, man, I'm just pulling things together, throwing them in there. So that's two boost dice, and go without, it's as if you do have the tools for the job, right? So you have another boost because of that. Nice.
Right.
Dude, you're dealing with particle grenades. You're dealing with explosives.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that, and definitely I would flip a story point, of course, to upgrade the difficulty, because this alien has damaged some of the key, life support systems in the ship. So,
cool. I'm thinking
to do this quickly.
I'm thinking it's going to be an automatic upgrade because you're dealing with explosives before the story point too. So,
all right. So, final pool.
Yep.
1 setback die, 2 boost dice, 2 ability dice, 2 proficiency dice, 1 difficulty die, and 2 challenge dice.
I think you need another boost die in there before you go without.
Oh, yeah. Right tools for the job.
Go for it, dude. See what you got.
And go. All right. So first of all, your 2 red dice came up blank again.
You bastard. Come on. Come on, Tony.
However, I also had 5 of my positive dice that came up blank.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you.
Wow.
Deal isn't too lucky.
So the check was originally just 2 success with 2 advantage.
Okay.
So while he did rig an object here, I think he's going to go for broke and use natural.
And re-roll?
Mm-hmm.
And re-roll.
Yes,
because
please.
he really, just identical pool. So he's going to use natural. Now, natural is a tier 3 talent in the core rulebook.
Yep.
And what it states, let me double check, because I
once
think
per session, it's a reroll. I don't think there's a spend. I think it's just a once per session, isn't it?
Yeah, I read it too. Once per session, your character may use the sound to reroll 1 skill check that uses one of those 2 skills chosen.
Go for it.
Okay.
Let's see what we got.
So it does not say that I can't choose at this point to spend a story point on my side to upgrade to ensure that success, does it?
No mention of that.
Same pool. Yeah, go ahead. I mean, it's
all right.
Okay.
So here we go.
Let's see what we got.
All right, that's a lot better. There's a triumph. So
there we go.
Is there a despair?
pulling out, and I only had 3 blank dice.
Okay.
No failures whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So all of my negative dice rolled threat.
All
which
right.
counts. So the 5 threat negative dice cancels out the 5 advantage that I had on my positive dice, leaving me with 2 successes, 1 from naturally itself, 1 from the triumph, and a triumph. So I went from having 2 successes and 2 advantage to 2 successes and a triumph.
There we go.
Sweet.
So,
well,
what
you successfully do it quickly.
So when he was making this, he happened to find a little bit of shedded skin that the xenomorph horror had shedded.
Oh.
Yeah.
And he has draped it over the top of the drone and also programmed the drone to seek out that particular biometric signature
There we go.
and only explode upon finding that particular biometric signature. And so now it's going to float around the ship until it finds it and blows it to smithereens.
There.
Awesome. That's good. And the ship is in space, right?
Sure.
Awesome.
I'll be in the escape pod, boss. Bye.
Okay, no one can hear you scream.
Oh, I won't be screaming. I'll be sitting in there eating a peanut butter sandwich.
There you go.
Awesome.
Eating some sushi.
All right.
Hey, that's
All right.
racist.
All right, sorry, go on.
All right. Next up, we go with Chris.
Yes.
What you got for us, Chris?
Well, my character, his name is Gadian. That was actually a name my daughter came up with for a character I had long ago.
Nice.
Thank you, Alexi. So my character Gadian, he's a warlock in the Inquisition dark fantasy setting, and he's going to try and cast Baleful Polymorph on a guard because he's been hired to go steal some incriminating evidence from a merchant's warehouse on the docks in Port Birim in the Kingdom of Fagari. Yes, those are the expanded gazetteer that he put in the Inquisition. So
Someone's been reading.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So, but the thing is, so when you cast, so when you want to use the witch spell casting ability, you have to have what's called an empathic link to your target. Now, there are talents that you can get that you can make a check and then you can have an empathic link. But if you don't have one, you can't cast spells on the target. Now, what I've chosen to do is he's done his homework. And he actually picked a fight with this guard in the tavern the night before, got some blood on his tabard or on his clothes, so he's going to use that dried blood as what's called a medium empathic link for that target. So then the next night he's going to cast on it. So instead of so it's going to add a setback die to his check. And we'll be using the Baleful Polymorph spell. And that's on page, 83 in there. So it's an average difficulty. I'm going to add one for my, and that's at short range. I'm going to add an ability called Duration, which Polymorph, you cannot concentrate on it. But if you increase the difficulty by 1, you can. So that's what I'm going to do. So that's kind of neat. So Gadian has a 3 intellect, 2 in witchcraft, so it's going to be a yellow, two yellow, and a green. And then the difficulty is going to be 3 purple, and a setback die.
Right.
For that, that's just to start off with. So yeah, he doesn't have any real. He didn't take those talents to get the empathic link automatically, but he does have a talent. This talent is awesome. It's called Cackle. If he spends a strain, he can concentrate as an incidental. So he's going to balefully polymorph this guard into a sheep, because I've been playing WoW Classic. I've been inspired. And sheep this guard to sneak into this thing, to this warehouse. That's my that's what I've set up. What do you guys think?
Sounds good.
All right.
That's pretty good.
I'm going to spend a story point because I'm going to cast somebody. I'm going to polymorph somebody into a sheep. It's cool. Really cool. You guys want to upgrade or
20?
Well, are there other guards around, or is he the only one?
You tell me. I'm thinking it was probably just the one. You know, he was scouting it out, seeing this guy was going to be on, scouting around the warehouse. But there could be.
You don't know when they do their shift change.
Exactly.
So let's go ahead and upgrade for that.
Okay, because I didn't quite do all of my homework.
Yep.
Didn't quite do all of it.
Yeah, and that'll be our story point for that.
Perfect.
But I also had an idea here. You said this is at night?
Yeah.
So let's throw in a setback die for that.
Cool. Alrighty then. We have 3 proficiency dice, a challenge die, 2, what are the purples called again? It's not like I have a podcast right
Difficulty.
Difficulty dice. and 2 setback. Here we go. Alright. Alrighty then.
Chris was doing it on purpose, just about the difficulty dice. He knows. Just...
All right.
Yeah, on porpoise, all right.
Yeah.
We have 1 success, a threat, but also got a triumph.
Ooh.
Nice.
Woohoo! So let's see. So does my...
Sheep. A sheep in cheap clothing.
Exactly. Boom, sheep. Now, what it does say, for duration, you make this spell more persistent, allowing you to concentrate on the spell to extend its duration. You could do it for a maximum number of additional rounds equal to 2 advantage generated. I kind of want to use the triumph to make it extended out.
Okay.
I could see you
Okay.
using a triumph for the rest of the encounter kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then on their turn, the target may attempt an average resilience check as an action. If it succeeds, then they regain their normal form. So maybe it makes it a little harder. Maybe it gives them a setback die on that check. The triumph.
Okay.
Or something. But I did generate a threat. One.
And I think because of that, you're going to get some extra strain. That costs a little extra strain.
I think so too.
Anytime spellcasting in that setting, it seems rather hard. So that seems.
Yeah. And then I'm just going to cackle all the way into my gathering the incriminating evidence. As a
They thought me mad at the university.
Nice.
So there we go. That's that.
There we go. Excellent.
All right, Stephan, what do you have for us?
Finally, I was inspired by the space opera. We didn't get to talk about Twilight Imperium, unfortunately, but still. Inspired by the Twilight Imperium, which I have played the board game before, which is kind of cool. So I have Miral Vesaril, a Hakan diplomat, which is like a lion
space
humanoid.
lion?
Yep. He's a diplomat on a mission to secure a very important trade deal with his human counterpart that he's met before in the past. He must, of course, get the best deal possible for his people. So his negotiation is 3 yellow, 2 green. So, yeah, he's a pretty good diplomat. He's one of the best. But his counterpart is pretty good, too. They've butted heads before with Sir Justin Rasmussen, who's also very skilled. So 3 red and 2 purple.
Ooh.
Yes. Although Miral has a fear of failure. He definitely doesn't want to fail his people.
Gotcha.
So I would definitely think that, with his fear, calling up on that motivation, a setback dice there. But through dealing with Sir Justin, he knows his flaw of greed. That he's greedy.
Is that 1 or 2? If you know a flaw, I can't remember.
If you know a flaw, it's 1.
It's 1.
One.
Okay.
So just the 1. And I gave him a few relevant talents. I just looked a little bit deeper at the different talents. He's got Smooth Talker at 2 ranks, which is a tier 1 talent, but it's ranked. So he's got 2 ranks in that, which will allow him, depending on the roll, to use a triumph to gain 2 successes on a negotiation check.
Ooh, cool.
And then Congenial 2, a tier 3 talent. He's got 2 ranks in that, and he can voluntarily suffers 2 strain to downgrade the difficulty of a charm or negotiation check.
Oh, cool.
So equal to his number of ranks?
Yeah, up to his number of ranks.
Oh, so the 3 red become 2 purple.
Yeah, so instead of 2 reds,
3 reds.
3 reds. Now it's just 1 red.
1 red, 4 purple.
4 purple.
Ooh, quite a pool.
All
right.
And he's got natural too. Natural for deception and negotiation. So if he has the option of re-rolling this if it goes sideways.
All right.
Nice.
And since this is one of these big important trade deals, he's going to flip a story point to get another proficiency dice.
What do you think, Chris? You think we should flip one here?
It is one of these critical things.
I think so too, because
other races are looking.
You're actually dealing with this guy on his own ship.
Yeah.
So if you really piss him off.
Home turf advantage, and there's a few other competing races that are looking in on these talks.
Yeah, he may know something you don't know.
That's it.
He might know something you don't know.
All right.
This could be round 0.
Yep, exactly. So we're looking at a setback and a boost dice. So, 2 challenge dice, 3 difficulty, 1 ability, and 4 proficiencies. So that's big dice pool, but let's go. So shake. Yeah.
Listen to those dice.
There we go. All right, so this one's blank. Remove that one. Ooh, we've got a triumph.
Nice.
Yes. 4 For 5 failures so far and 4 threats. So let's see about, the setback dice is also a threat, so that's a total of 1, 2, 6 threat. Yeah.
Sounds like you need like a notepad.
I might. So, and he only has 2 advantages, so that would be, that cancels out those 2. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 successes. 4, 5 successes, so it would be a
wash.
A wash, although the triumph does also count as a success.
Oh, you didn't count that
count
one?
as 2.
So that would count as 1 success and 4 threat and a triumph. But he's going to try and get a better roll and try again. Of course.
All right.
So let's go for it.
Re-roll it.
There you go. All right. So maybe a little bit better. Already the challenge dice are only 3 failures. The setback dice is blank.
Nice.
Another purple blank. And we've got 4 threat. All right, and these are advantages. The all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's killing me.
Yeah, 5. 1, 2, 3. Nope. All right, so no advantages, but successes. No triumphs though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 4. All right, so it's not.
Do you succeed?
It's still 1 success, net success, but no threat, no triumph, no despair.
So
Just
all of that.
A single success.
Single
success. But instead of having maybe 1 or 2 successes from before and threat. So maybe in this way, but no triumph either.
Dude, you re-rolled the triumph, man. You had still succeeded.
You're braver than me.
You have 1 success, which means you don't necessarily get the best deal for your people, but you get a pretty good deal.
Or a pretty good deal without any strings attached, which might have had some strings with the threat.
Pretty clear-cut contract there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go.
Pretty good.
So yeah, trying to look at talents beyond just the knack for it. So
yes. Big dice
always,
pools.
yes.
Awesome. All right.
Well, let's call it a night.
Let's call it a night. It's been long enough. All right. All right, everybody. That is our show for today. I'd like to give a shout out to Patrick Shadowdad Greenlaw and his Role Players Imaginarium blog, which is he gives GM advice and rules, a lot of rules conversion for Savage Worlds out there. And I must say, his latest entry will apply to everybody. How to run a sandbox game. Very well done. A lot of points. I know we've all run those kinds of things, but he's got a lot of good information in there that just kind of puts it all together for you and you can move forward. And then he has this Pulp Action Hour series of various blog postings that he's done. So that's pretty cool stuff out there.
Yep,
I love it.
Yep.
So, anything to add, gentlemen? Or
a few reminders, of course. We've said it before. Con on the Cob still upcoming, getting closer and closer. October 3rd to the 6th. Yeah, getting up there. So if you see us, if you're there, shout out, come over, and we'll all give you a big hug. So with advantage.
Don't know what that means, Stephan, but whoa.
Or threat, depending on your point of view.
Will it be an advantageous threat?
That always depends,
So I guess what Stephan is saying, show up at your own risk.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, is that what you're saying, Stephan?
Yeah. We're mostly harmless.
No, yeah, we are. And besides, I don't know what morning I'm going to do it. Maybe every morning I'm going to be making Millennium Falcon waffles in the morning. So
Sweet.
And we can pretend to be Minox, chewing on the power cables.
That's a great idea.
There we go. And stay tuned for our next show. We'll be recording it around the September 23rd, if everything goes right, with our special guest. Yes, we have a special guest, Keith Capel, freelance writer for FFG. Writing instructor as well on his website. You can get some information there at adventurewritingacademy.com.
Mm-hmm.
So he's
I'll have the
author
link.
of,
Yep, I'll have a link to that in the show notes for us.
Yeah, and he's the one who wrote the Ready Fight supplement for all things combat related, like different combat options. That is also available on the Genesys Foundry.
Mm-hmm.
So join us, and you can send your questions to us, and then Tony, give us some contact information for those questions.
Yep, you can email them to us at findingthenarrativepodcast@gmail.com. You can get a hold of myself and Stephan over at Finding the Narrative on Facebook. You can get a hold of us and the Nerds International community on MeWe. And we have a nice little chat going over there. So come on over.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great way to talk to all three of us, and it's kind of a fluid thing.
Yep. And I actually posted pictures of my meat. I mean, the meat that I smoked this weekend.
Yes. I love when Chris shows me his meat.
Yep. We have a Twitter presence at @FTN_Genesys. Stephan can forward your questions on to us from there.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, tell everyone about us. Listen to us on Podbean, iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, and Spotify.
I would like to put a little thing out there, and I don't know if you were going to say this, Tony, or not, but the questions you send in for Keith, don't ask him about what he's doing in the future. Don't ask about what he's writing on. You know what I mean? Don't ask questions that you know they can't talk about.
Yeah, anyone who works for FFG cannot talk about future projects. That's just a policy. And so we are going to be highlighting Ready Fight in that show.
Pretty much.
And if you have questions about that document or any of the other documents he's worked on, he's worked on several of the Star Wars titles. He worked on the adversaries for Shadow of the Beanstalk. Oh, yeah. He worked on several other things, and we'll get into that in the show. But if you have any questions for him, Keith is a plethora of knowledge. He's former Navy man, so he's military man like myself.
Awesome.
The Adventure Writing Academy that he is part of is actually run by him and a few other individuals, and they teach you to be a freelance writer.
That's great. I'm going to send that link to my daughter. I think she's going to love that.
And that's a great way to get into the writing for Fantasy Flight, because a lot of the guys over there do write for Fantasy Flight.
Now, I'm sure they probably have a forum and stuff over there too, right? I'm assuming. But hey, if you have any questions about that, send them in to us. We'll ask.
Yep.
I know I've got a couple questions that I want to ask him about. You know, how his technique of creating some NPCs that I put in our show notes if you guys haven't seen it yet. And a few other just a few other things, and then of course, like Tony said, we're going to do a deep dive into Ready Fight. So we're looking forward to that. That's going to be exciting. It'll be our first interview show.
Yep.
I've never interviewed anybody before.
If it comes off as a success, it may be becoming a regular thing.
Yeah, semi-regular or regular.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. Well, I think I'm going to call it a night, and I'm going to say to everyone, keep rolling them bones.
Yep, and I'm going to say goodnight too, and also not to forget to ask for those books die.
That's right. And remember the rule of cool, which is on a sidebar on page 165 in the core rulebook. Remember that rule of cool, and just have fun, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye now.
Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast, is not affiliated with or endorsed by any companies mentioned in this show. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of their respected owners. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast. Copyright 2019, all rights reserved.